Grab a brew and tune in to the High Ticket Review. In each episode, you'll get a rewind of the misses, makes, and definitely magic of live high-ticket sales calls from a veteran sales consultant, Will DeShazo, who has held more than 15,000 calls and trained multiple 8-figure companies, all while developing a simple winning framework to close your next call. From objection handling,
I'm gonna need to sleep on this,
to on-call close techniques, the High Ticket Review has you covered up in talk tracks that convert to dollars. Now, on to today's training.
I really do. I wish that Transistor, where I host this podcast, had some sort of polling mechanism, some sort of way for me to poll you, because I wish that I could get your answer to this. Just like webinars have like polls. I would love to know this. My wife has this really hot take. Okay. Yes, my wife is super hot, but that's not the hot take that I'm referring to. She has a really hot take. She has this thing where she believes that every human being, no matter skin color, no matter culture, no matter economic status, no matter religion, every human being has this thing, this deep desire in our innermost being, whether you will admit it or not, whether you know it or not, this deep desire where we long to be challenged. We long to be challenged. Do you agree with this or do you disagree with this? Because at first I disagreed with this and I pushed back and she gets on to me because I disagree with a lot. But the more I've pondered this notion of we as humans wanting to be challenged, the more I've actually come to believe it to be true. And if you're a coach, by the way, like that's who I work with. I work with coaches with high ticket offers. If you are a coach, let me ask you something. When is the last time you yourself hired a coach who you saw an A+ breakthrough that didn't actually challenge you? Exactly. Every great coach will challenge their client at some point in their relationship. And typically, it's right at the point of breakthrough. It's just what we do. So, hear me out here. Shouldn't you do this? Shouldn't you challenge your prospect on a sales call? Skirt! Immediately half the listeners stop listening to the show. And I get it. You're like, all of a sudden you're like, no, that's sleazy. That's weird. My toddler does this little thing where like I'll point out stuff. And if I say something that's not there, she goes, no. It's so fun. But isn't this true? When I say you should challenge your prospect on a phone, on a discovery call, immediately you're like, oh, that feels unsettling. But here's the thing. Hear me out for a second. I don't mean an unhealthy, pushback. You're not ending this phone conversation until you say, yes, challenge. That is not what I'm talking about. So clear your brain of that. But hear me out, because here's the thing. Aren't your discovery calls not you auditioning to be their coach? And this prospect auditioning to be your client? So if that were to be true, shouldn't these calls give your prospect a taste of what it could be like to work with you? Yeah, that should happen. And if you just roll over, if your posture is just to roll over, or if your posture is just to talk all over them, what does that say about how you're going to coach them? I'm going to challenge you on this. It's an interesting thought process, right? So recently, a coach in our program asked me a really smart question. She said something along the lines of, how do I give a recommendation or a challenge or pushback a prospect's approach without sounding like pushy or self-serving, right? She had a prospect who seemed to say that she wanted one thing throughout the entire conversation on her discovery call, seemed to say she wanted to change and now was the right time and this was a top priority. But by the end of the call, she completely went back on all of that. And by the way, during discovery, the coach that I work with, my client, she discovered that this prospect seems to be the tire kicker type. Have you ever talked to one, right? Like, let's raise hands here. Yes. So how do we do this? How do we challenge our prospect in a kind and an endearing way? You see, the key to challenging a prospect without triggering resistance is how you frame the question and how you deliver the recommendation. You might be like, challenge? A challenge is a statement, not a question. Not always. So I have a 3-part play for you to run the next time that you need to have some pushback or deliver a healthy challenge on a discovery call. If you're ready for it, let's get into it, right? So step 1, you actually need to ask for permission. You need to have them invite you in to challenge them. Wouldn't it be better if your prospect said, sure, I'd love for you to challenge me on this? Well, yeah, that's a posture thing, right? So there's 2 ways to do this. 1, you just need to ask for permission. Hey, do you mind if I ask you somewhat of a direct question? That's a great challenging question, right? Or, hey, would it be okay if I asked you a little bit of a direct question, right? You're inviting yourself. You're asking for permission. This disarms the prospect, and they almost always say, well, of course. So you've got the green light. They've said, yes, you can do this. So no one should be upset. There should be nothing weird, right? Bonus, by the way, ask for permission early on in the call before you ever need to challenge it. And before you ever need to challenge anyone, ask for permission. That way you can point back to it at the time as needed. Something like, hey, this is like your first 5 minutes. By the way, John, often on these style calls, there might be some kind of breakthrough opportunity here. It happens a lot for you to grow, right? And many of my clients, they seek that. They want that. They desire that. They long for those moments. And if there is that, would it be okay if, or do I have your permission to lean in, be a little more direct with you together? Together, keyword, right? Who's going to say no? Of course, because we as humans innately want to be challenged. And then when the time comes, whenever that might be, hey, remember earlier, John, when I had asked you if it would be okay if I leaned in, if I saw an area that, maybe you could grow in? Maybe I'm totally off here, but I'm sensing, describe what's going on. And my offer, is that fair? Oh, yeah, you're right. It is a little bit of a mental blockade. Bam. Now you've got the invitation. You've got the permission. That's a big deal. So step number 1, ask for permission to challenge or to be direct or to push back, okay? Don't just say, let me push back on that for a second. That's annoying. You can do that if they've hired you when you have a great relationship. You probably wouldn't even do that on your first coaching call with them though, okay? Step 2, you need to show curiosity, not judgment. This is not about judging them doing something the wrong way. This is about you getting more context and keeping a curious posture. So here's the line. Got it. Hey, I'm just curious. What's the reason you're doing it that way? Hey, got it. I'm just curious. I know earlier you said you wanted to change. You were just looking for the right relationship. Now it seems that we don't want to change. Is something off in the relationship? Open up. Show curiosity. Don't show judgment, right? Hey, got it. You just told me a pretty detailed process. What led you to set it up this way, right? Show curiosity. Your facial expressions if you're on Zoom or your tone if you're on a phone call, to be curious, to be genuinely thinking says it all. Not to be judging, not to be conniving on top of them. No. You don't need to do any of that. Show curiosity, not judgment, okay? And step 3, ask for permission. Again, but to give a recommendation. Now is where you can actually challenge them. You've asked them, is it okay to challenge them? You've got more understanding and more curiosity of what they're doing to be challenged. Now you can give them a recommendation based on what you've heard, but you need to ask for permission for that. Hey, would it be okay if I offered a suggestion based on what I've heard? Based on what I've seen working with people like you? Can I offer you a suggestion? Would it be okay if I, right? Those are all good invitation, permission language terms, right? And then you can share your insight. But make sure it's based on patterns. It's not an opinion. This is not an opinion. It's based on facts, ideally, that you just got when you showed curiosity, right? And hey, the reason I say this is because, and maybe show a little authority, I've worked with 20 people in the last 6 months. I've worked with 350 people like you who started with the same setup. They ran into this issue. What they ended up doing that was a little bit better for them was this approach, right? Then you can give a recommendation, okay? Based on your program, your offer, moving forward, wherever you are in your conversation. So you can understand here, there's 3 steps, guys. 2 of them are just asking for permission. It's invitation posture. So ask for permission to challenge them or to be direct with them. Show them curiosity. Don't pass judgment. Still keep a curious posture. And then ask for permission to give a recommendation of what they should do next, what they should do to fix that thing, right? Because most coaches, if you're like the majority of coaches, 90% of coaches on discovery calls are way too passive. They actually just roll over. They don't push when they really should. And I'm not talking about closing the deal. I'm talking about if you hear something and you want to challenge a mentality or you want to challenge a mindset or you want to challenge them to grow, you shouldn't just roll over and be passive. You also shouldn't be too aggressive. 10% of coaches on discovery calls will be too aggressive. They don't mean to, but they come across that way. See, I believe, and I think you believe, that it's totally okay to challenge your prospect, to challenge your client. Just do it the right way. See what happens on your conversation. When you ask before challenging, 2 things are going to happen. You can watch. You can see how you immediately show respect and their guard lowers. They flourish. They begin to blossom. They begin to open up. That's a big deal because their guard lowers because you show them respect. And 2, you shift from being a salesperson, a seller, to a consultant, to a coach. That's what they're looking for. That's who they're wanting to work with and hire. You see, right? So go and sprinkle this. Go and use this on your next conversation. I can't wait to see how it goes for you. And I hope to see you on the next episode on the High Ticket Review. See you next time.
All right, you just listened to the High Ticket Review. And by the way, this podcast is completely supported by you, a high ticket closer, business owner, or salesperson. So make sure to smash that subscribe button to close higher dollar deals faster. And don't forget, go implement what you heard today. Opportunity is right around the bend on the other end of every single call that you take. See you next time.